Hasbro is dropping the Mr. in the Mr. Potato Head brand and logo, but don't be confused, you can still buy a Mr. Potato Head, a Mrs. Potato Head, and a Darth Vader Potato Head. And that's the video. Goodbye everyone! God, could you imagine if life was that simple? Instead, we live in a timeline where potential serial killers and the intellectually inept are getting upset over a children's toy. And for the uninitiated, here's what I'm talking about.
We're trying to wrap our heads around the potato head situation. Mr. Potato Head is offensive. It's offensive to call them Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head. Now Potato Head is just going to be called Potato Head.
Toy maker Hasbro announced they will no longer be making Mr. Potato Head toys anymore, instead opting to call the toy simply Potato Head now. But I'm fairly certain there's literally Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head. Is it now just Potato Head, and then you can choose which gender it's going to be? Is that the aim? Is that the end game here? Why?
Is it symbolic, actually, of this rapidly encroaching abandonment? It's an abandonment of gender terminology.
Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head aren't going anywhere and will remain Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head. Fuck you, Hasbro. Fuck you, and fuck your entire executive board and every single person involved with this decision. Fuck you.
No, this isn't a joke. These are actual adults that can legally drink, drive, and vote that are complaining about the name of a toy that is aimed at children. Now, I grant you, that does sound extremely pathetic. Although on the one hand, this is actually a good thing because it shows that they're in touch with their feelings.
Fuck you.
However, on the other hand, there is a high probability that these people have borderline personality disorder. So because of that, I'm going to try to be as nice as I can. Let's see how I do.
That is offensive. That is offensive to—
Who's this offended?
No one. At least no one I could find. But you'd think that these brain surgeons would actually back up their claims, because between several people asking the question, alluding to it, making this claim, that they'd have something to show for it. But they haven't even provided a single tweet. Now where I come from, this is known as talking bollocks. But imagine, if you will, that I, one individual with a microscopic YouTube channel, made the claim that so many people got offended by having this name changed, and then I started showing you tweets and video clips to back up what I was saying. That might be a little bit awkward, but in all reality, it's down to marketing and money. Businesses looking at what's popular in order to grow their market base and gain more capital in a capitalist society? Shocker of the week, I know. Anyway, let me talk to you about something called goodwill. Say you have a toy line with a white guy who has blackface on, and on the back of the box it says, brought to you proudly by some starving child in a Chinese sweatshop. And then you have another toy line that looks like all the other ones on the shelf, but on the back of the box it says, half the proceeds from this product will go to starving children in Cambodia. You're more likely to support that one than the other. Or when companies give to charities, yeah, they're losing money in the short term, but they're getting positive public reception, which is beneficial in the long term. Or when they say that they're for inclusion, that also reflects on them positively. Even if we know what they're saying is complete bullshit. Public perception can make or break a company, and they know this. Everything is important to a brand. What they sell, what they say, even down to their name. Which is why, for example, you'll never hear Lego try to make their products more gender neutral, because it already is. And with the benefit of hindsight, that's actually really ingenious. And as a brand, it's so flexible in where it can slap its name on. Marvel, DC, Star Wars, Lego Princess, and don't even get me started on the video games. Now imagine instead of Lego, it was called Mr. Lego Playset. Even if they produced the exact same products, you would view these two brands completely differently. Lego? Yeah, they appeal to everyone. Mr. Lego Playset? Yeah, they make a few girl products here and there, but they mostly appeal to boys. And that's the inclusion of one word that is already
altering your perception of this brand, because words are more powerful than you may think.
And marketers know this. Now for the sake of clarity, you know how Lego is not called Mr. Lego Playset, but we still have a Lego man and a Lego woman. Now just apply that to the Potato Head brand, and that's it. It's that simple. And yet these people still couldn't wrap their heads around that.
I have watched in my lifetime illiteracy, semi-literacy, and
one thing to look out for are arguments like this.
But I mean, something like this, it's a kid's toy, and I think kids, it's just confusing them at that age. They really shouldn't be enforcing this so much around kids. I think being a child is confusing enough as is, but when your 4-year-old, you know, he goes to the shops and he's looking at 2 boxes and they both say Potato Head on, and he's like, well, which one's Mr., which one's Mrs.? And then his parent says to him, oh, it's a gender fluid potato. He's gonna be like, huh?
Yeah, or what about these toys? They both say Spider-Man on the box. These would definitely confuse children. This is an important lesson in basic level reasoning. Have you ever had a little girl come up to you and tell you that Ken is a girl because he comes in a pink box, is in the girls section, and is a Barbie toy? You should say no, because that's never happened. If you're a father, has your child ever come up to you and called you mummy from time to time? I'm sure if they were confused about something, you'd sit them down and explain it to them. Or what about this? If a child sees a man in a dress, what are they more likely to say? Oh, that's a very peculiar looking lady. Or, why is that man in a dress?
Tuff, obviously the child is gonna say the second one, you soy boy cock.
Oh, okay, so if a child can distinguish between a man and a woman, why is this going to confuse them? Children are dumb, but they're not that dumb. Children know the difference between a man and a woman, and if a child can tell the difference between mummy and daddy, then they're not going to be confused by the time they see these toys, are they? Then again, in all fairness, I suppose this would confuse even an adult, because it would take a well-trained eye to pick up on these subtle differences between these Potato Head toys. One thing people seem to forget or don't realise is that brands change their name all the time. If I turn to you and say, hey, let's go to Pete's Super Submarine, you might just look at me and think, Pete's Super Submarine, what's that? You probably don't even know that's what Subway used to be called. Pepsi used to be known as Brad's Drink until it was changed in 1898, and if you live in the UK, you might be old enough to remember what opal fruits were. I have a friend who still calls Snickers Marathon Bars. If you live in the US or the UK, you might be shocked to find out that in Australia, Burger King is called Hungry Jack's. Nintendo used to be called Motherfucker Company and Nintendo Playing Card Company, because they started producing more stuff and it made no sense to have a name that was so limiting. If you were old enough in 96, you might remember that Google used to be Backrub, and if you're really little, you might not even know that Facebook used to be the Facebook. The fact that we live in the age of information and people are still this ignorant actually blows my mind. Finally, I want to talk about the most embarrassing part about all this. The articles, specifically the ones featured in these 2 videos, because the people reading them didn't read them closely.
There was no information on whether they will be changing Mrs. Potato Head as well.
There's no information on whether they will be changing Mrs. Potato Head as well.
Upon hearing that, I thought, why would they keep Mrs. Potato Head but not Mr.? But then you step back for a bit and then you realise there were 2 Mr. Potato Heads, the brand and the product. That's why they never mentioned Mrs. Potato Head. It even says it here in this Huffington Post article before it was updated. Look! Hasbro's making sure all feel welcome in the Potato Head world by officially dropping the Mr. from the Mr. Potato Head brand name and logo to promote gender equality and inclusion. Notice it doesn't mention toy or product, because a brand, a logo and a product are different things. It says it there, clear as day. There is no way you could misunderstand that unless you were being deliberately ignorant so as to further some sort of agenda, or you are the byproduct of incest. And can we appreciate the irony that these babies having a temper tantrum over the name change, saying that this new name will cause confusion when it was the old one that caused all this confusion in the first place? I'm not gonna lie, I had a nice little chuckle over that. Aww, and look, Hasbro was even kind enough to clarify what they mean, because some people just don't know how to read. It even says it there on the bottom hand corner of the boxes. Mr. Potato Head, Mrs. Potato Head. And yeah, it might be confusing if you don't understand the difference between a brand, a logo, or a product, but if you think about it for more than a second, it's pretty obvious what they're saying. You don't need to read between the lines. All you need to do is read. You fucking idiots.
It's all about humanity.